Hello everybody, Ben Coleman with you, one of your hosts for Florida Aviation Network, here at the Sun and Fun number 41, 41st annual, and we're transmitting all this in the clear. This is streaming live to you. As a matter of fact, it might even be up on the birds, so if you're watching this from the comfort of your television or in front of your screen, in your lounger, enjoy yourself. But we wish you were here because this is going to be a great day for an air show and all the different events that we have going on here at Sun and Fun. One of the beauty parts about being here at Sun and Fun is all the unusual and the specialized training and the specialized skills of all these aviators and astronauts. We do have astronauts walking around. One of those we have here is just unbolted, unstrapped out of a beautiful warbird that I'm going to let him develop that to you, but it's Mr. Steve Larmore. Stallion 51. Steve.
Good to see you, man.
Always good to see you.
Yep.
And tell me a little bit about what you've been doing this morning. How's your day going?
We got up and briefed for a 3-ship Mustang flight, and we just arrived with 2 Crazy Horses and Mad Max with Lee and John and a couple of people in the back.
So everybody's here.
Everybody's here, and Lee's going to be doing an air show in Crazy Horse 2 this evening, so we had to get the airplane back over here. But we got to come in as a 3-ship.
Crazy Horse 2, Crazy Horse Squared, what is it? Help me.
Crazy Horse is the original Stallion 51 Mustang that's been doing this for 27 years. It's flown more people than any other Mustang in the world.
And that's almost a Guinness
It probably
record.
Would be, yeah. Yeah,
And
if you added them all up.
Yeah, and the Louderbacks, they're just a class family all the way around.
Yeah, it's a good group. I'll tell you what, we got a great crew over at Stallion 51. It's all about the people, and we've got them.
Steve, how many volunteers do you have operating with you guys? Anybody that come up and say, hey, I want to help, I want to sweep?
Oh, we get that all the time.
Yeah.
But we're actually all on a payroll.
Okay.
A lot of part-timers, and a core of full-timers.
Okay. And is that by design, just because the employees, you can have a little bit more, I hate to use the word control, but you can focus their attention a little bit better. And it's hard to fire a volunteer.
It's hard to fire a volunteer.
But speaking of which, we have a lot of volunteers out, our camera operators,
all over this place, and they're all doing a great job.
Do we love our volunteers?
I'll tell you what, Sun and Fun volunteers are something special.
Oh, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to put on this big show. But developing, what is your role primarily with Stallion 51?
I'm the full-time guy. I'm like the number 3 instructor in the Mustangs. I'm the number 1 instructor in the T6s. I'm also a mechanic in an IA, as you know. So I do a lot of maintenance when I'm not flying. So I know these airplanes very well, and we all work together to keep it going and keep it safe.
Well, Steve, I have a term that I use called the ultimate airman. And that's a mechanic that wants to be a pilot.
That's right.
And a pilot that wants to be a mechanic.
That's
and
right.
Any pilot that doesn't want to learn about the systems and their structures and inspection times,
EAA,
intervals.
that's what it's all about.
Careful.
You know, all of these sport pilots, all these EAA guys fit that mold.
Well, we want them to work on them at the same time they fly them.
That's right. Or build them and fly them.
Well, not at the same time. We'd rather you fly it and then work on it, or work on it and then fly it. But please try not to work on it while you're flying it. Not that we've ever done anything like that.
Oh, no.
In flight, let's see what it does. No.
But it helps to be so knowledgeable about the equipment you're flying that you know how to fix it even before you get on the ground.
There's only one time that I'm a little bit too concerned when I have too much knowledge about the aircraft. That's when it's on fire.
That's right.
I don't want
right.
it's burning.
I don't want to know.
On the ground. But your instruction in the T6 is just anybody able to come up and either take a rider?
Oh yeah. I do advise people. The T6, I call it a 5,000-pound tail dragger with a mean streak. It's a delightful flying airplane. It's one of the nicest flying airplanes you'll ever fly. But its ground handling is a little challenging, let's say. So I advise people who are going to come do T6 training to get some tail dragger training first. You know, get your Citabria, Super Cub, whatever, Super Decathlon.
Well,
Get your feet working.
Yeah. Feet. What does that have to do with anything?
Exactly. And that way, because the T6, one, it's expensive to fly compared to a smaller tail dragger, right? And it's not a good airplane to teach people how to use their feet as a tail dragger. You can do it, but it's going to take a little bit more time and money.
True. Who would you recommend? Well, I can't really go there. We're on national television. How would it? I'm working myself into a corner here, Steve.
That's good. I can help you out here.
When somebody tells me I say, well, how much tail wheel time do you have? Oh, I don't have any. I said, why not?
I tell them to go to the local. There's somebody around there, even with a pit special,
Okay.
An acrobatic school, right? Pit special is the standard. If you've got pits time, if you've done a lot of landings in a pits, we know your feet work. Right?
Okay.
It's a whole different ball game between a 1,500-pound airplane and a 5,000-pound airplane, but we know you've got that skill set.
Got a lot of mass going.
Got
I
a
guess,
lot of mass,
yeah.
and that's the issue. Once that mass gets some inertia and starts going in a certain direction, it's going to want to keep going in that direction. You've got to stop it before it gets there.
And anticipate.
Anticipate. And you'll see that. You'll see that with experienced T6 guys. It doesn't look like they're working the rudders that hard because they're getting the rudder in early and stopping the yaw before it actually happens because they know it's coming.
Steve, we're all about safety here at the Florida Aviation Network and trying to pass that message on to the viewing public. How does Stallion 51, how do you keep your safety ball in check, if you will?
It's the priority. You go to work for Stallion, and this counts in a lot of different places. Safety's the number one issue. It's the priority. You start out from there, and then you work. Briefs, safety briefs,
Okay.
debriefs, going over the safety issues if necessary. I got to do one here when I get back. I had to run away from the airplane, and when we get back over there, we're going to debrief this flight for all kinds of issues, but safety first. So you're always conscious about safety.
Well, Steve, there's a lot of folks out there, they're pretty sharp, and they've got an excellent memory. And typically, after you go through a checklist a few times, you can pretty much, write it out on a napkin if you had to.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you don't really need to use a checklist every time
Let me
you
tell
operate
you
an
something,
aircraft.
Ben. In my experience, even when you've got a checklist on your knee or in front of you, a lot of my students will miss an item on that checklist, on the pre-takeoff checklist. Not the run-up, the pre-takeoff checklist in particular.
And
They'll
how-
miss an item, even though they've got a written checklist right in front of them.
And what do you attribute that to?
Well, you're always in a hurry, and one of the things you're doing is going from the item to the checklist. So you're switching back and forth. And it's easy to miss a line on the checklist. It's very easy.
Well, and would you not say, I'm going to just throw this out there, that a little bit of complacency
Definitely
enters into it.
complacency.
Because what can go wrong? I've always had the checklist in front of
That's
me.
right.
I've always read it. I've always done everything. And so
The very careful people will do what we call the flow. You do the checklist items from a flow. It's a visual flow. You go around the airplane, in our case, from left to right. Airline guys do this too. But then they go back and line by line go through their checklist to make sure they didn't miss anything.
do you recommend the cookbook method or the checklist?
The cookbook method, which is
Well, the cookbook
flow?
is, you look at, okay, I need a quarter pound of butter, I need a cup of milk, I need a half of a cup of sugar. And then you go over and you do that, then you
Yeah.
go back and pick up a few more, like a cookbook. Or is it quarter pound of butter, quarter pound of butter, half a pound of sugar,
That's
half a pound
that's
of
the
sugar?
way they're doing it, especially in a CRM cockpit. If you have another guy in there, you're being checked by the guy. He'll read it out,
Demand challenge.
demand and challenge.
Okay.
Right now, when in a single airplane, a single cockpit airplane, you're on your own. So
Okay, let me ask you this. You've been flying solo a little bit every now and then, don't you?
yep,
Do you call out the checklist?
I do. I do it out loud, and you can ask my wife when she's with me. She won't let me miss anything. But in the airplanes I fly, I'm flying the Texan, the Mustang, and my personal airplane. And I know the checklist so well. We've got a checklist available, but I'm doing the flow pattern. And you do it every day.
And if as long as you use that standard, and that's a
You
habit,
got to have that
And-
standard.
and you
you've
don't
got to
break
be
it.
flying
Always use
a
it,
lot.
yeah.
And if you go a week or 2 weeks, you got to go back to a written checklist
Yeah.
without flying it. So
but the big thing is just standards. As you know, flight standards is very dear to my heart.
Yep.
And it's very, very, those standards, they were created for a reason. Somebody
that's right.
usually either got
That's
hurt or
right.
an engineer went to an awful lot of trouble to write that checklist.
Boy, you're preaching to the choir here. Somebody wrote that checklist. Somebody put a limitation on that airplane for a reason. If we're flying 1940 airplanes, right? People will go, well, why do you do this? I say, it's in the book. Well, why is it in the book? somebody spent a lot of time and money to determine that that was the right airspeed or that was the right time to do this. I'm not going to argue with those guys.
No.
So.
Yeah. Where do you see Stallion 51 going? I mean, because Lee and Angela, John, Jim, everybody is working around that outfit, is always striving.
That's a good question. We keep improving. This gets better and better. You know, like I said, we got a really good crew now, and you know that's a development. Over time, you get better and better people. So
we could start a rumor right here, Steve. You know, there's Crazy Horse squared. How about Crazy Horse cubed? Oh, is there going to be a Crazy Horse 3 coming?
We actually use an owner's airplane as our third airplane. We don't own that airplane. It belongs to somebody else, but they lease it back to us and let us use it. So it's flown under the same standards, maintenance and flying-wise, that the Crazy Horses are.
And paint scheme? It's not the same paint scheme as
no.
Crazy Horse.
No.
All right.
Oh, no.
Well, tell us a little bit about Mad Max. You flew that one in today.
No, I was in Horse 1.
Okay.
Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse 2 was John Possum and a friend of his. And Mad Max was being flown by the owner and Lee.
Okay.
Lee was in I believe, the back seat of Mad Max.
Good. And are there any other aircraft other than just T6 and the P-51s hanging out at Stallion?
Oh yeah, we've got an L-39 for upset training. It's actual VFR and IFR upset training in the L-39, which has been especially modified for this role. It's probably the best real upset training you can get under a hood with a glass cockpit, like all the corporate and airline guys are flying nowadays. So it's not a simulator, it's the real thing. And I'm not an airline guy, I'm not a jet guy, but I can see this is probably the best upset training I've ever seen.
Well, you can do just so much in a simulator, and you can talk about it, you can read about it, you can demonstrate it, but really doing it is the only way.
And in that type of airplane, with that type of instruments, you can go out and learn aerobatics in an extra 300 or a pit special. That's upset training, right? Any kind of aerobatics, but it's not a 10,000-pound jet or a 20,000-pound jet. This L-39 really emulates that. It really does a good job for upset training.
How close do you guys get to Mach tuck when you're?
I don't get to fly the jet. I don't. But the L-39 is not that fast.
Okay.
Yeah, we probably get closer in the Mustangs than we do in the L-39.
Oh man.
Again, we're very conservative. We're not overspeeding these airplanes. You know, we don't get anywhere near red line in these airplanes. But
intentionally.
The Mustang has a high critical Mach number on that fat laminar flow wing. It'll go fast. It'll go 505 miles an hour red line, right? 440 knots approximately.
Downhill.
It's downhill, definitely downhill. But it'll do it safely. Contemporary airplanes had a thinner, faster airfoil, but I take that back, not faster. What they thought was a faster airfoil was a really thin, not very thick airfoil. And their Mach numbers, their critical Mach numbers were kind of low compared to a Mustang. So technically, you could outdive any of the contemporary airplanes, P-38, P-47, Messerschmitt, you know, Focke-Wulf, with a Mustang because of that airfoil. Now, I don't know if that was by design or if that was a lucky coincidence. I'm thinking it was a lucky coincidence because they didn't really understand compressibility in 1940 like we do now. But it was a good lucky thing.
Steve, the Stallion 51 and Lee and his crew, and I always will refer to Lee and his crew.
Yep.
They've been doing it a long time.
Long time.
And the brothers Pete and Rick, they have been there supporting the outfit for quite a while.
If it wasn't for them, and we all recognize this, if it wasn't for Pete and Rick, we wouldn't be there.
Well, this is a loaded question, because you're a mechanic, how important is maintenance on these machines?
Let's get back to the safety factor.
All right.
The maintenance is priority to keep the airplane safe, right? These guys have been working on Mustangs for 30 years and P-40s and airplanes like that for even longer. They know a lot about these airplanes and these engines.
How about the folks that are viewing this and they're just thinking about it, doing some hangar flying, and the old adage, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if it's not,
How
why
are you
take
going to
it
find
apart?
out if it's broke or not without inspecting it?
Oh my goodness, that sounds like a lot of work, Steve.
It is a lot of work.
Why
It
take
is
it?
a lot of work.
You got to take
You know,
apart.
most of it is on the engine, on the Mustangs. T6 is a durable, tough airplane with a durable, tough engine. You still have to inspect them, right? We get 50-hour oil changes on, let's talk about the Texan. We do 50-hour oil changes. I inspect it then. It's a 50-hour inspection. 100-hour inspections, because we're using them to make money, compensation or higher. And the Mustangs, you have to pay more attention to the engines than you do the airframe. It's a great engine, the Merlin, but it needs some attention.
Where would you, if you had the tickler behind the ear, what would be the most ticklish spot on the Merlin, just through your experience?
Valve train.
Valve train? Got to keep them.
Top end valve train. Heads and banks, but mostly valve train. Cams, valves, valve guides.
Okay. Solid lifters, hydraulic?
Yeah. Good question. Solid, I believe. I believe so.
Because you set your valve clearances.
4 valves per cylinder. You've got to set those every 100 hours. You've got to check those. The real issue with that airplane is this metal on those engines is 1940s metal, aluminum. It's an aluminum block engine, right? So when you take it apart and put it back together, you're using the studs and the bolts. There's a lot of, let's say, reinforcement in them nowadays because that metal has, the screws have been in and out so many times. So you got to be careful about that.
Who in the country, I mean, do you have trouble finding folks that are Merlin experts, or eventually do you wind up
We
being
don't,
the
because we
expert?
have them.
Okay, you are the expert.
We got the guys, Pete and Rick.
Yeah.
But there's other guys around the country. There, there's,
In the world, because I mean,
that's what we're worried about, though, in the future. How many young guys are out there? How many?
Well, they're right there. They're right behind the screen.
That's right. That's
and,
right.
That's why we need to compel these folks to, if you've ever, show of hands, who here does not like the sound and the roar of a V12 engine going through the air?
Exactly.
I don't see any hands, Steve.
Yeah. It's almost as much fun just listening to a Merlin fire up as it is to fly it.
But the sad part of it is, from the cockpit, you don't get that nice zzz.
No. When you're
It's just
inside, you don't get any of that.
It's just a solid hum.
That's
And
right.
it's,
That's right.
But what else can you, when we're trying to, again, get folks to get into this industry, and
I'm surprised
how do
at
they
how
do
many
it?
people are into it. I hear from people all the time, not just pilots, but mechanics who want to get into the warbird community. They want to learn about that. It's just, it's not easy to do because it's kind of spotty where these locations are. Where can you do that? And I tell them to go to a museum,
hang on the fence,
Go volunteer,
drive a broom.
learn something.
Drive a broom.
Get your mechanics rating, get your pilot's ratings. That's how I got into it.
And do you ever spend any time out at Reno?
I do.
That's kind of an interesting.
That's an interesting
hybrid
dynamic out there. That really is.
It's there's a lot of experimentation
That's right.
going on, but
That's right.
but the mindset is that of and as beautiful as they are, and as much as we enjoy them, these airplanes can hurt you.
They can hurt you, especially when you're taking them to the limit, like they do at Reno. They're trying to go faster and faster and faster. But I'll tell you one thing, all those guys understand that. I know a lot of those guys. They understand the increase in risk that they're taking, and they're very careful about that. I mean, those guys are really working on those engines, and strengthening and reinforcing those engines.
Yeah, and sometimes, and just like the drag racers, the drag cars.
Yep.
They say, well, yeah, we had to change the engine out. Well,
Oh,
how
yeah.
long does that take?
Oh,
About 30 minutes. 30
Yeah.
minutes, change an engine? Come on now.
Well, remember, the Mustang was built as a military airplane. They didn't do top overhauls in the field. They changed the whole engine, mount, oil tank, the whole thing. Quick engine change.
Yeah.
And that's the way the Reno guys are doing it. Now, we're doing it piecemeal because we have time and we don't have to, say, invest in a quick engine change, the whole thing.
Yeah.
We have spare engines, spare parts and stuff, but we'll put them on the engine that's on the airplane just because we have a little bit more time.
Well, if nobody's shooting at you,
That's right.
and,
That's right.
and you don't have a launch window,
That's right.
you can take some
Well,
liberties.
I got a lot of respect for the World War II guys who were doing this kind of work on an island in the South Pacific, or in the cold in Belgium.
Pappy Boynton and his group out in the Pacific.
Yep. I mean,
Man.
you see some hot, and they didn't really have a whole lot of equipment to work with. They were waiting for their stuff.
They invented a lot.
They
I
invented a
understand.
lot of stuff. These guys were resourceful. But remember, most of those guys came off the farm back then. More people lived on farms than in the cities back then. These are farm boys. These are resourceful kids. They know how to fix things. And they've been trained to work on these particular pieces of equipment.
Have you ever spent much time talking to Story Musgrave?
No, but I just saw him on a documentary about the Hubble telescope.
You talk
What
about
a character.
He's a farm boy.
Yeah.
And he's proud of it.
Yeah.
And actually, we need more farm girls, farm boys
That's right.
step forward. And,
That's right.
And if you know how to keep a tractor running,
That's right.
you
You're
keep an
always
airplane
working on something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a little bit of an advantage. Nowadays, more people are city guys. More people are city people than country people. Than
Yeah,
farmers.
but we can turn that around.
Yeah.
We can turn it. You can turn it around.
It's all about training.
Steve, enough about Stallion 51. We know what a top operation that is, and it's just beautiful.
It's a great place.
Where'd you come from? What'd you do? How'd you get where you got?
Oh, I'm the little airplane guy. I don't even have a multi-engine rating.
Good for you.
I'm a specialist. I fly. I luckily came up through gliders, tow planes, biplanes. Got a lot of Waco and Stearman time, pit special time. But I hung in there doing glider rides, banner towing, glider towing, and biplane rides, and then got into the T6. Spent a lot of time in the T6 doing orientation flights and rides, and built a lot of time, and became the instructor. Got more time in the back seat than the front seat. A lot more time in the back seat than the front seat of a T6.
I have to ask a question. It's a pilot thing. How much time do you have?
I've got almost 14,500 hours, and I never used an autopilot. It's all hands-on.
I love it. Somewhere around 14,524, but that was as of this morning. But I just finished a flight. Where's my logbook?
That's right. That's right. Keep count of that stuff.
And it's and actually a logbook is actually it's a diary. It's also a love story.
I'll tell you what. Keep your paper logbook. You know, people are going electronic. I like to have a book.
Yeah.
It's something to hang on to.
And sometimes you make notes in there, and sometimes you shouldn't.
That's right. That's right.
But it is it's a love story.
It really is.
Anybody that's around aviation for any length of time, they have to love it.
Oh yeah.
Because if you don't, you get out of it. You go.
Well, I tell youngsters that all the time. Find something that you enjoy, something that you like. You're going to get good at it if you get to do it, but you've got to enjoy it.
Well, one of the situations I know that they wound up enjoying was sitting on the couch, eating potato chips, and playing Game Boys and so forth.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that trend, frankly.
We got to get them off the couch, man.
But I got to tell you, even some of the middle-aged people I see are now, I'll walk up to them and they're all texting like teenagers, you know, but thank God for these digital communication devices we have. It makes life a lot easier. It really does.
I can't help but, I was sitting at a stoplight the other day, and one of the turn lane was going in front of me.
Oh, no.
6 cars in a row was people doing this all the way. What in the world are we coming to?
Well, the worst is when you can see the screen and you can see that they're texting.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're not looking at that point. They're looking at that screen. That scares me.
And I'm going to throw myself under the bus here.
Good.
I have been known to driving down the road. I'm just going to text 2 words. And,
it's tempting.
And about
Don't
the time
do
that I
it.
start doing it, I'm not going to do it.
Don't have to do it.
And it's a personal decision. It's a personal choice. That nobody makes you.
It's going to get more and more illegal to be texting while you're driving. It's just too dangerous.
And the feds, as far as legalities, you know where I come from.
Oh yeah.
I really don't want more rules.
Oh no.
Really, we need to take care of ourselves type thing.
Yeah.
And, where did you hail from, Steve? I mean,
Delaware.
Delaware.
I'm from Delaware originally.
I did not detect the proper English accent.
Actually, the Eastern Shore, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, Eastern Shore Peninsula, for a long time had its own accent. And there was a lot of old English in there, but then they built the bridge over the Chesapeake Bay, and they invented television, and now everybody talks the same. We were isolated for a while. They used to say, there is no life west of the Chesapeake Bay.
Really?
Right? That was people from Delaware and Maryland would say that. Yeah.
But that's a very, very congested airspace area up there to learn how to fly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, not with me. I was, the Delmarva Peninsula, you've got the Chesapeake Bay on one side, the Atlantic Ocean on the other side, lots of moisture in the air. I learned to fly in 3 and 4 miles of visibility. So haze doesn't bother me a whole lot. It's farmland, soybeans, corn, chickens, turkeys, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to, is it not Salisbury?
Salisbury.
Yeah, Salisbury.
Yeah, I worked at Salisbury Airport for years.
There's a lot of farm, but people don't realize how much farming there is.
There's a lot of farming
out there.
going on there.
Because the soil and the land is so moist and fertile.
Well, it's an alluvial peninsula. The Susquehanna River created it when the glaciers were melting, and it's all sandy. It's good soil, very good soil for growing stuff.
Well, they grow some pretty good pilots out of that area too. Larry Kelly, Pontito, he hangs around Maryland quite a bit.
His airplane is based at Georgetown, Delaware, and I spent a lot of time at Georgetown too. His airplane is being worked on at Georgetown by a guy that taught me how to work on airplanes. It's a small world. Yeah, very good mechanic.
And
Bobby Danzy.
do you have any Pontito time?
No, that's a many motors thing. I'm a single engine guy.
You know, it's the only thing about multi-engine is, you know, it's just you don't have just one to fail. You got two
you
that
got
can
two.
fail.
That's right.
But it's
I've got some very good friends who are B-25 guys.
the B-25 is one of the favorites for many. And Steve, any last thoughts that you'd like to share? At least, and your specialty is T6 instruction, and of course you operate the Mustang just because you have to.
Because they made me do it.
Yeah.
The T6 transition thing. The T6 is the gateway to get to the bigger fighters, the 2,000 horsepower fighters, because it's a heavier tail dragger and it's challenging.
Well, I'm going to send folks your way to get acclimated with a big old fat tail dragger with a mean streak.
5,000 pound tail dragger with a mean streak.
I love it.
Yep.
Steve, thanks for your
Good
time.
talking to you, Ben.
Always
Good to
will.
see you again.
Sit right there as we close this thing out.
Okay.
And I'm going to lean forward. I'm going to look right in the square of the eye here and say, thank you for joining us on this program, and join us for another program here at the Sun and Fun 41st Annual Expo, Lakeland Regional Airport, Florida Aviation Network. Ben Coleman, see you later.